Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Guest today, Rebecca Styn. Rebecca, please tell us where you're calling in from and what you do for a living with Blind Tiger.
Matt, thanks for having me. I'm the founder and CEO of Blind Tiger Spirit-Free Cocktails, and I'm calling in today from Erie, Pennsylvania, a little corner of northwestern PA right on the lake, which is not great this time of year, but is in the summer.
Awesome. That's amazing. And yeah, so I was obviously checking out the website before we hopped on today. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved in this space and a little bit about your background that led you up to creating this brand?
Yes. So my background really doesn't match up to my current situation, right? And I don't know that any entrepreneurs does. So I'll start with the most recent history, which is in 2017, I opened a speakeasy restaurant and bar called Room 33.
Cool.
And it became known for its craft cocktails over the years. And in 2020, when COVID hit, we were mandated to take out only. At that time, 90% of our sales had come from the bar, but in Pennsylvania, you weren't legally allowed to sell alcohol to go. So our options were to close our doors or lay off our team or figure out something else. And I opted to figure out something else. And that something else was not just what came to be, which is Blind Tiger, but, we ramped up our kitchen and did a whole bunch of different things. But we started bottling non-alcoholic versions of our cocktails and had a really great response. Had done some research into the market over the years and realized that this was just beginning to emerge. So this is like 2020 in the United States. In Europe, it really had kind of flourished, and decided in my insanity, I wanted to bring it to market. I've never launched CPG product before, and it's been quite a learning curve.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love all the backstories. And believe me when I tell you, you're 100% right that almost nobody's professional or experiential background leads up to what they eventually do as an entrepreneur. Almost, it's very rare. So that's definitely a common experience I hear. But yeah, that's really awesome. And I feel like you're definitely probably a little ahead of the curve with a product like this as far as created this as a response to COVID, whereas I feel like the non-alcoholic space, at least in the United States, is flourishing now as kind of a response to what was an issue with a lot of people during COVID and during like the lockdowns and everything, which was like rampant substance abuse, which is got a little bit more, I think, well talked about now. So tell me a little bit about your experience on that side of things as we're moving forward to 2024. Do you find that most of your customers are kind of experimenting with things like this for that reason, or what kind of feedback do you get directly from your customers? I'm curious.
Sure. So statistically, over 30% of the U.S. population doesn't drink at all for a variety of reasons.
It's actually fascinating. I would not think it was that high, actually.
Yeah, no, it really is. But then that doesn't include the designated drivers, the women who are pregnant, those who just don't want to drink for a night, which back in the day, myself included, if you didn't have a cocktail in hand, people wondered what was wrong with you, right? So we've started to kind of create opportunities where you could have a cocktail and nobody's really questioning whether it has alcohol in it or not, right? Because we just want to live a better lifestyle or feel better. Don't want to wake up, as we age, we don't absorb alcohol like we used to when we were young. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons why people partake or don't partake. And our idea and our mission really is to create an opportunity for people to feel part of the occasion, whether they're drinking or not, right? So it's very inclusive. Our drink is both a ready-to-drink non-alcoholic cocktail, but it's also a really easy craft mixer. And we designed it that way because we used our mixology team to kind of create the recipes. So if you did want to add a spirit, it would just enhance the profile of it for the original craft version of it. So it's been a really good response overall.
That's very cool. And you actually utilize your staff at the still existing restaurant to kind of create these flavors and experiment with things that way?
Yes. So they created the original recipes, but we used a beverage engineer and we used a home manufacturing facility to produce them because we'd probably kill people if we made them in the back of our bar. So
yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. But I guess I'm curious, like this pivot that you made, obviously as a response to COVID, where you couldn't do alcohol takeout. I'm surprised that Pennsylvania did not make that change. I think most states that I heard of at the time, because I was working in restaurants actually at that time as well, did either a temporary or a permanent, switch where you were able to do completely sealed, alcoholic beverages to go. That never happened in Pennsylvania?
It did, but not until much later. So
I see.
We were not one of the early adopters. And by the time it had happened, we were back into we're shut down for a few weeks, open for a few weeks, shut down. There was all of that rigmarole. So, yeah.
Yep. No, I remember that. I was in New York at the time working in restaurants. restaurants. So, the regulatory response there was one of the most stringent across the whole country. So believe me, yeah, I remember that.
Oh, yeah. I know you
didn't
guys
know if I was going to work. We were takeout only 75%. Then we were at 81% capacities. Like nobody ever knew. But this is really interesting. I've seen definitely, as you mentioned, a general trend in this direction of alternatives to, alcoholic beverages. Where do you kind of find your niche and like where you're selling it? Are you mainly selling to other kind of food service companies like restaurants and things? Are you doing more wholesale, direct to consumer? What's your revenue categories right now?
Yeah, so our biggest revenue category is retail. We just landed in that. You would have thought with COVID, it might have been more e-commerce, D2C kind of opportunities. And that's where a lot of the non-alc players really got their start and do wildly great with it. But I just had some serendipitous luck where I connected with a group that was connected to a huge grocers association, and over time just started to make that the pathway down. So right now it's probably like 75% retail and 25% e-commerce. But I would really love to branch out more into the other niche industry. Well, not niche, but like tourism industry, sports industry, because I think that ultimately there will be a big play for those down the road.
Yeah, I think so too. And like, in New York City, at least where I am, is pretty much every bar you go to now. I mean, the mocktail category is as big as the cocktail category in the menu these days. I don't know if it's like that. I assume it's probably not the same way in most major cities across the US, but is that a vertical that you've considered, been approached to, or looking to get into more to kind of like sell and be like on shelves at bars and restaurants as well? Or is this just not something you've done yet?
So when we develop these, you have to remember, so we have a speakeasy bar, and I'm sure you've been into many classic craft cocktail bars, but those mixologists like to create their own things from scratch, right? So for us to provide something that's ready to drink or a mixer isn't typically on, the top of their minds when they're using it. This is good for more of a high volume sort of thing, somebody looking for quick turnover, but creating something craft and good. But for the really niche or craft cocktail bars, it's not an avenue that I plan for us to pursue.
That is very true, actually. I didn't really like that. Yeah, that's definitely fair enough. Because when you order a mocktail, I mean, it's fresh ingredients mixed together, these kinds of things. So you definitely see this more as in the home sort of thing for consumers buying it from a retail location or directly from your website.
Yeah, definitely that. And like I said, like a franchise or something that, has very specific set parameters and just makes it easy, but you're also giving them a better for you all natural drink at the same time.
Right. No, that definitely makes sense. And so tell me a little bit about the flavors that you have out so far. I love the names, first of all. Which is your most popular flavor? Can I guess that it's bee's knees?
So yeah, it's probably a tie now a little bit with the bee's knees and the lavender French 75.
Ooh, okay.
So we introduced the lavender just back in July of this past year, but the bee's knees is the most award-winning, hands down. I mean, we get like double gold top tier medals anytime we submit it to a beverage competition. We are updating two of the varietals ever slightly. We're adding carbonation to the sidecar and to the south side and renaming them a sidecar mimosa and a Southside Mojito, because one of the things that we're learning is as you try to target a more general audience, these names aren't widely known. So unless I can get in front of the consumer, every single one of them to say, this is what a Southside is, or this is what a sidecar is, it's really kind of hard to do that easily. I'm hoping that this will have some engagement with them. Plus it's carbonated and people like carbonated beverages. So
yeah, that's
tend to see that more popular. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess on the D2C things, I'm curious, what kind of like marketing channels are you utilizing? Are you big on like social media? Are you doing any kind of like paid advertising that way? I know you said, it's not insignificant to revenue coming from D2C channels. So give me a little bit of breakdown of that and how you're continuing to nourish that side of things, even though most of your business comes from retail.
Yeah. So D2C is a little tougher for us. I have a part-time digital marketing person. So it's really hard for us to do all the things I'd like to see done right now. But social media is very heavy. Like we're on all the major channels. It's like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and Twitter and LinkedIn and everything there. But we focus most of our energy on Instagram and TikTok. We've done some paid advertising to date. We do paid advertising on Amazon, but it's just like sponsored effects. But I really need to take the time and energy to create some really good content to put out into the paid sphere. So we have influencers, we work with influencers for our product too. So it's not as of a strategy as I'd like to see, but I think it will be moving forward as we continue to grow and obviously add team members to our group.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And as far as your retail presence, what kind of stores are you in, if you don't mind me asking, or if you can say?
Sure. So I don't know if, depending on the audience, if everybody's familiar with Wegmans, but there's about 100 locations there over here on the East Coast. We got into Sprouts Innovation Set twice now. We're in home goods. We're in like
cool.
Mom's Organic Market, different markets like that, depending on the distributor and state we're in. So we work with KeHE, an all-natural distributor across the country. So there's opportunity there. But we have 2 statewide beer and wine distributors we work with, one in Michigan and one in Massachusetts. So those really open up opportunities for different retailers there. And that's kind of where we want to build our growth, is working with these more statewide distributors, with having a more targeted focus as we develop our brand.
Yeah, so that was going to be kind of my follow-up question to that. Was like, I was curious if you've done any testing, like especially in like a more like grocer style setting, like a Wegmans would be. Where do you find the most success in like in a place like that? Do you find it like right up against like your hard seltzers and things like that, or like kind of like separate from the rest of like the conglomerate of like all the kinds of beers and seltzers and all that stuff? Where do you find something like this in a Wegmans?
So this is one of the most challenging things I've seen as a CPG brand so far, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of places still don't know where to put us, or they're not able to carry alcohol, right? So you're either with beer and wine, you're in the mixer section, which doesn't really necessarily bode well for you. And I'm in a lot of mixer sections. We were in the mixer section of Giant Food. So it's just kind of the placement there. But we find when there's either a spirit, like we're also in Total Wine, and we do really well in the Total Wines that we're in, just in Michigan and Massachusetts, we do well there. So and when we're placed near spirits or in a dedicated non-alc set, I think is where we flourish. But we do get lost in the mixer section. And that's where a lot of grocers still kind of have us right now, until they determine that there's enough need for them to create the non-alc. Or
yeah, it's really interesting, because I was on a podcast yesterday with a gentleman that was talking about that. He was saying that he basically got really lucky with what he was selling, which were they were like 12 dates, and he was in like, I think he said his first retail deal was like 10 stores, and they just like the managers of each of those stores for whatever reason had just by happenstance put them in like 10 different sections of each one of those stores, and he got like this testing done basically like organically without even asking, and he found that instead of having it in being like the candy aisle or the snack aisle or the salty snack aisle or the like health foods aisle, the world foods aisle, his best placement was actually like in the little coolers that are along actually the produce and everything else, where you find a lot of the natural, you know, organically derived type of foods. So that was really interesting to hear, and I don't know if ever like possibility, since you're in, you know, a few different Wegmans, maybe run something like that to say like, you know, try different things and see where it works specifically with those Wegmans. I mean, it sounds like it's already have, you know, some feedback to give to say, you know, that like this is what it should be. But I know you mentioned, is there like certain Pennsylvania where like a grocery store can carry spirits and beer and wine and stuff, and others where they can't, or what does that kind of break down like? I know you mentioned that briefly.
Yeah, so Pennsylvania retailers cannot carry spirits at all. So it's just beer and wine. So in Pennsylvania, we're typically in a mixer aisle, and then it just depends on the state, like, you know, and who carries what. But we're a controlled state, so spirits are only sold by like a liquor, a word I forgot.
Right. Like what do they call it, ABC stores or something? Or
yeah, ours are
something
called,
like that.
Yeah, ours are called wine and spirits. But
I see. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, I can definitely see that. I mean, so you find the most success basically where there can be wine and spirits sold, and you're kind of in that like look and conversation in those stores.
Yeah. And I think, and we do well in those areas too. So because we're classic cocktail name.
Yeah, right. That definitely makes sense. And so I guess just one question I always ask everybody that comes on the podcast, if you see it in mind that we post, I always try to ask this question is, now, obviously you've been in business with a restaurant and bar for a while, made a huge pivot during COVID. So I guess I'm curious, like everything you learned, like since getting into CPG, you know, if you could go back and give yourself like one piece of advice starting this brand again, business, personal, whatever it might be, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
That's a really good question. That's going to be a tough one for me to answer. And the reason is that there's a lot of things I would have done differently had I known differently. But at the same time, I think all the things that happened that I wish hadn't happened that way also informed better decisions. So for me to make, right? So I never have any regrets in a path that I take, even if it doesn't work. And most of the time it doesn't work. So I think it's more probably it's just to continue to have the grit and resilience of building the brand, because some days it gets really tough and you wonder if you're really designed to do this, if you're really supposed to be doing it. Are you one of the crazy ones that just keeps going when you're supposed to stop, right? You've heard like all the different stories from an entrepreneurial sphere. And I think that's the most important thing, because there's so much failure in this. I don't really one right way to do anything. And I think ultimately the ones who are meant to make it work will make it work. And it's just different pathways there.
I think it's actually a core value of being an entrepreneur that you are one of the crazy ones that continue when you probably should not be continuing. I think that's what actually makes a successful entrepreneur. So if you feel like that I feel like you're probably doing something right.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So,
want a lot. So, yeah.
what's funny is an answer I get to that question a lot, like half jokingly from people, is they'll always say, how about just don't do it?
Right. I know.
That
Yeah.
always makes me laugh. And then it's always like, no, I would never, for the world, I would never go back and change anything that I've done. But the knee jerk reaction with that answer always kind of makes me laugh. But yeah, no, that's awesome. I really appreciate that answer, and because it's so true. And so what's kind of like, I guess, just like last kind of question, what's like the biggest thing like coming up on your roadmap right now, as far as like any new flavors coming out? Is it something like that? Are you looking to expand it to a new kind of revenue channel? What's kind of the biggest thing coming up on the roadmap for you and coming up in this summer and maybe into the fall even?
Yep. So one of the things we've been looking at, because we promote both drinking and not drinking, and the prohibition is really known for the glamour of illicit alcohol, we started to explore the pathway of adding a canned cocktail line. But in keeping with our brand, we're going to pursue something like a lower ABV, anywhere from like a 4 to 6% that is using our current varietals. So those are kind of in the works right now. We're going to take our lavender, make it into a lavender margarita, make a vodka mojito with the south side, and then we're going to make a bee's knees with the gin. So we're going to give those a shot. We're going to launch only in one state, which will most likely be Michigan, and online, and kind of see how it does. And hopefully, it'll be a pathway. The non-alc will still be our primary focus, and we have a Manhattan in the works now and some other varietals, but this will hopefully supplement that growth as we continue to figure out the best pathway forward via channel or, customer as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And I just want to give you an opportunity quickly as well, just to, shout out your website, your social media channels, any way people can stay in touch with you, whether it's somebody looking to partner with you from a business aspect, or, somebody just wants to place an order. Let people know how to stay in touch with you guys.
Yeah, so our website is blindtigerspiritfree.com. It's a little bit longer, but there's a way to get in touch with me on there. And then obviously our Instagram and our TikTok is just at Blind Tiger Cocktails, and those are the most fun to check out, are the videos and images. Obviously invite anybody to follow us there.
Awesome. Rebecca, I just want to say thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate your time and your insights. I love your story, of your pivot, everything. It's always so interesting, and keeping going when maybe you shouldn't, but believe me when I tell you, I talk to probably anywhere from 30 to 40, small business owners, online brands a week. And believe me, everybody feels the same. So just keep going, I say.
Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on today.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I wish you nothing but continued luck and success. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.